All right. So I wanted to take a second to go to just review the feedback that I got on that reflection activity that we did earlier this week. I just picked some things out. I don't know that they were representative of everybody, but they were something that either um, meant something to me because I felt like I could respond to them, or seemed like kind of patterns. Um, so, first thing, how much have you learned about yourselves as learners? I think this is the important thing. The very important thing that's happening this year is everybody's learning more than we've ever learned before, because when you switch your environment up unexpectedly, you learn from that process. But we just don't know exactly what it is we're learning. So, one thing you all can be focused on is learning about yourselves as learners. Um, the first two said, I'm a lot more quiet than I usually am. I don't talk very much about myself. I learned a lot about my anxiety and how my anxiety works. I can relate to both of those. Anxiety does seem to be a recurring theme, and I think talking about anxiety is one thing that helps reduce anxiety, and identifying where that anxiety comes from, both internally and externally, are ways to address anxiety. I like this one, that knowledge is my specialty and highest form of power, but I must specialize in all categories of life. But at the same time, knowledge only takes you so far. You can't spread knowledge to those who choose to be ignorant. I must be both street and book smart if I want everyone to hear and relate what I have to say. That's pretty cool. I don't really think people choose to be ignorant. I think that our brain works to keep us closed-minded, and we have to kind of keep correcting our we all have an urge to make things simpler than they are, to make people bad, make people bad, and all the things that we suffer from are because of evil people that want us to suffer. And in reality, it's more complex than that. That's just how our brain works to oversimplify things. But I do agree that it takes both street and book smart. And I think what's more important than knowledge is like understanding of your emotions, and and that you don't get a lot of that at school all the time. I've learned I've become an introvert. I rarely work with other people anymore on projects, and I'm fine with that. I've often felt myself as an introvert, but sometimes I feel like I can be an extrovert. So I think my reaction to that is that we sometimes think that somebody's always an introvert or always an extrovert, but sometimes people change. In some situations, you might feel extroverted. In some situations, you might feel introverted. And I think it's important to keep in mind that being more aware of mental health, because I feel that once the pandemic started, I felt that a lot more teachers started caring about mental health. That's probably true, and I think that's a good thing. Regularly check in with students about mental health or how they're doing. Do not ignore students who are known for having problems. Be patient with the kids who do not understand the subjects. Schools should check in with students more or have meetings about them. A lot of students have changed. Some of them used to talk more but started isolating themselves. Um, I think that's true. We're all different people. We're all very different people than we were even 11 months ago or at the beginning of this school year. What's the hardest part of distance learning? Holding myself accountable and getting work done on time. Motivation. I can definitely feel motivation. Um, I understand for students, but even for a teacher too. I think what helps with your motivation is they're small, but they're periodic rewards. Like when you get that good feeling when you turn something in, or you get that good feeling when you know something on a test, or for me, when I get that good feeling when I can see kids in front of me that are either like kind of enjoying learning or like laugh at something I said, those things don't happen as much. And that affects motivation. And we're all feeling that. That I can be distracted extremely is easy considering I use my laptop for gaming. I miss seeing people. I miss my friends. I miss being around other people, around people other than the one friend I'm allowed to visit. Yeah, I think that captures a lot. I think it would be easy to say just don't be playing video games, but realistically, um, that's just something that kids deal with that I think people from my generation don't relate to as much, because we didn't have there was a line that divided video games from computers back then, and that line has faded. And sometimes I think video games are where, we have an environment where young kids don't get to explore and be creative as much, and that's both in school and in the world outside school. Like that, you don't have as much freedom as to go out and run around and play, come back at sunset like kids in my generation did. And so, to me, I think video games might be where kids get that opportunity to be creative and explore. And I don't think that gets talked about a lot. So I do think it is an opportunity to work on your self-discipline and focus on the things that matter to you. But I recognize that that's a legitimate thought or feeling. The hardest part of distance learning for me is the social aspect, talking to my friends and the teachers. Criticism for schools, I worry about my grade more than I worry about learning. I think the education system and colleges make you worry about your grade more than learning, because your grade and your GPA are what's going to get you to a good school, which in return is going to get you a good job, depending on the college that you go to. I think that the education system doesn't really care about you actually learning about a topic. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a problem. I think that every time there is a problem, there's an opportunity for somebody to address that problem. But that's a very big problem. Schools have evolved to be something that, through all our ways of motivating you to to do this and that, and striking fear into you as to what might happen if you don't do this or that, we've got a system that's kind of removed all of the purpose and the value for learning and being creative. I feel the teachers try too hard to relate to the students, but I understand they lived in a different time than us. I want teachers to be themselves around the students, but still keep a professional status. Yeah, I guess so. Whatever. I think one piece of criticism I have for school is the amount of work given, especially now during distance learning, because there's way too much work. Yeah, I think that's true. I think the major thing that I see in all my classes is that students feel that teachers don't recognize that they're only 1/6 of the student's life. That our class is at most one of 6 classes that you go to during the day, and maybe we would pay lip service to that fact, but then we often act like you should bend over backwards for our class. And I think that is a conversation that teachers need to have, especially at a school like Amador. Criticism for this class, I don't feel like that I'm that challenged by this class. It's way too easy for me. The classwork is easy, the homework is easy. As a result, there should be more extra credit opportunities that should be designed to challenge students. That's good feedback. I'll take that into account. I would rather teach myself the math instead of having to go on Zooms. That makes sense. Those in this class aren't interactive enough. They're always complaining about not being able to interact with anyone, but when it's time to turn on their camera and speak, they would rather avoid it and go silent and then say they're shy. I understand it's not face-to-face, but I highly doubt that's the reason they don't interact. Yeah, I think there's a bit of truth to that. I may be too nice, and you may be taking advantage of it, and it may be harming you. It's not harming me as much as it may be harming you. So, to reclaim a positive and engaging class culture, some people need to venture out of their comfort zone and do things that make them a little bit uncomfortable. And I promise that if you do that, you'll learn that it's not as hard as you expected it to be. Mental health, I agree that we should discuss root causes of mental health. Definitely open up places for students to talk about their feelings, whether it's a counselor or just a breakout room. Maybe there should be a club of some sort where we can work on ways to calm ourselves or something. I feel that we need to stop preaching about it and start doing something about it, and to start asking different questions when it comes to mental health, because someone, if they're okay, doesn't do anything, people can lie. Also, I know for some it is impulsive to say that you're okay. I feel that counselors and teachers need to have even more concern than they do now, because they're kind of doing the bare minimum when it comes to mental health, but at least they're actually doing something about it. I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. Definitely the part that we need to start doing stuff. And I think this is where you feel people recognizing that mental health is an issue. We talk about it all the time, but often the actions that we take are in direct opposition, meaning we do the opposite of what we say we want to do. And I think students need to continue bringing these issues up to teachers, because as a culture of teachers, we're being a little bit hypocritical, and I think that we need to have more difficult conversations about what ensures good mental health, and come to consensus on that, and then act in accordance with whatever that is that we decide on. Shout outs. I only picked the ones without the last names because I didn't want to put anyone's last name up on YouTube, which is where this is going. But Emma, Arzu is nice. Nathan, you all got shout outs. I think you guys are all a fun class to teach, and I look forward to, this spring and more situations where we can figure out how to give and receive feedback. Um, because I think if we're doing it, we're going to be ahead of the curve, and people are going to other classes are going to be slowly catching up to us, and that to me is a little bit empowering. And being empowered to me is a way to address mental health. All right, thanks for listening.